core element of Whole Lotta Red is its hyperkinetic pacing, especially in its extended opening run. What?
Let's save it. Wait, let me introduce the pod, please. We'll get ahead of ourselves. Okay. Okay. Hello and welcome to the Minority Arts Appreciation Society podcast, where we're ticking all the boxes and bringing a much-needed minority perspective to popular internet discourse. I'm Josh. My pronouns are he and him, and I lead the music discussions.
My name's Matty. My pronouns are she and her, and I lead the film discussions.
And today, we've got a special guest with us, Gabriel Okafor. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Gabriel. My pronouns are he/him.
Now, the Pitchfork review is one of the main, other than the album itself, one of the main things that me and Gabriel discussed a lot, which made me really want to bring him on to talk about the album with. And Gabriel, can you give the audience some backstory on this Pitchfork review? Why it's so kind of bizarre and captivating?
Yeah. So of course, it does require a bit of backstory. You might be familiar with a little organization called the Nation of Islam. And the creation of the white man in the jungles of Africa by the demon Yakuza. Pitchfork is actually an extension of that same project of stealing the life energies from African American communities, just all around. So a whole lot of Red, the review from Pitchfork, has been an extension on that, on the lines of that same project, in which they find a way to write thousands of words that amount to nothing but empty hype, saying absolutely nothing about the album, but giving it basically like a rave review.
Yeah,
I remember. Mike Seatown has a series on his YouTube channel called Out of My Element, and his patrons recommend him albums that he wouldn't normally listen to, and he reviews them. And he did Die Lit by Playboi Carti. He didn't really enjoy it. As a caveat, I'll say Die Lit is a very different album to Whole Lotta Red, and I personally do enjoy that album. But I understand where Mike was coming from, and he did talk about how publications like Pitchfork seem to glom on to kind of any kind of buzzing kind of trap hip hop thing, and kind of over aggrandize it, kind of play this weird ahead of the curb white dude hipster role.
Yeah,
they try to control the narrative.
Exactly, control the narrative, and kind of be the ones to sire Playboi Carti in as the next era of rap or something,
And it's always with these just weighty, loftily worded introductions that, like you were saying, Gabriel, just really say nothing. To lift from the Whole Lotta Red one, they say it's hard, melodic, and experimental, and it's just there's just such empty words. Melodic, it's okay, it has a melody, and it's just these are such
rap.
Yeah, exactly. But the simplicity of the words makes it sound like they're trying to make this grand statement, and it's abominable.
I think my favorite line, hands down, on that review, and we can go over some other lines if you want, but my favorite line is he just what song is it? But he describes one of the beats as sounding like an iPhone ringing from
an
heaven.
iPhone ringing in heaven. Yeah,
yeah.
It's fantastic.
What song was that about again?
I don't even remember. I think Beano, apparently. And it's funny because it doesn't sound anything like an iPhone. It just doesn't. It really doesn't.
I'm just picturing this fucking dude sitting in a Starbucks writing that line and being super fucking pleased with themselves.
I mean, they definitely hate themselves. Maybe not consciously, but I don't see why anyone would humiliate themselves in such a extended form if they didn't despise themselves at some level,
Verses disintegrate into Gregorian trance. DRATO is spelled out repeatedly as if Carti is trying to win the world's most heavily armed spelling bee.
Oh, man.
And it's like, look, I like that song a lot, and I like when he says DRACL, but it's like a very normal trap thing that is happening, and it
Yeah.
isn't like Gregorian chants in a spelling bee. It's so like Matthew said, this is the definition of pretentious. Like it's
Yeah.
completely empty and shallow, and
Yeah.
full of pretense. I mean, with that, let's just get into discussion of the album. So I'll kind of run through the roundtable that we have here and ask everyone what their history with this album is and with Playboi Carti is. I'll start with mine. So for a long time, I didn't really listen to Playboi Carti at all. Throughout his big blow up with the song Magnolia and his self-titled mixtape, I never tried it out. And I think my first memory of thinking I should try out Playboi Carti is I was in sixth form, and I was kind of like on semi-ironic, semi-non-ironic. I was enjoying some like Smoke Purp, some Lil Pump, or some like vaguely ironic shit. And I did genuinely like some of that. And it was the song Audi by Smoke Purp, which I really dug. And I was talking to someone about it with it at school, and they were like, I get why you'd enjoy that, but most of these guys are just ripping off of Playboi Carti. And I was like, oh shit. I didn't realize Playboi Carti held the originator position in trap. So I went back to listen to that mixtape, Playboi Carti, the self-titled one, and like was honestly completely blown away, completely shocked. It was absolutely fantastic, and I remember it felt like what ASAP Rocky had been hyped up to me as this like euphoric cloud rap artist. But when I actually went to ASAP Rocky, it was very drab and dull and imagine uninteresting. But Carti, with that first track, Location, it is completely euphoric. It is insane, and it is like quite inane and repetitive, but it genuinely feels like getting incredibly high and like levitating, and it's just complete bliss. And I just thought that was a fantastic project, and I think this continued with Die Lit. Incredible tracks from the album, like Lean for Real is one of my favorite trap songs like ever, if I'm honest with you. I'm a huge fan of Carti, and Whole Lotta Red, highly anticipated for me, was super excited for me. And I remember it dropped on Christmas Day, and I was like ecstatic. I was like, this is it. I never thought this album would actually come out. I thought it would be another Yandi. And all I remember is I got like I think I got like 4 tracks in. I hit the song, the 5th track, Jump Out the House, which is only like a minute and a half long, I think, but it genuinely completely fucking broke me. And I had to put the album down, and I didn't return to it until we decided to do it for the review. So that's my history. How about you, Matty? What's your history of Playboi Carti and this album?
Playboi Carti is an artist that at this point, I don't know, I haven't missed because he is still working. Yeah. But I don't know, I just never got around to it. And but I think my first actual like full-length Playboi Carti song is Earthquake. And God, I love that feature so much. I know that's not a controversial statement as well, but I do feel like with someone like Playboi Carti, where there are people who find like his affectations and like his vocal production and performance like innately annoying, you kind of need to establish before your review like where you're coming from on Playboi Carti and his vocals. And so that's to say that I think they're absolutely not a problem, and I love them. It's kind of like what you were bringing to mind with me, Josh, about it being kind of repetitive. It's just like it's kind of shoegazy. Like it is really just about the sound, and structure really just isn't that important. And that goes for sentence structure and words as well. So yeah, I really do dig him aesthetically, but I haven't ever listened to a full Playboi Carti project.
And how about you, Gabriel? What was your history of Carti and this album?
Yeah, I got into him, I guess like mainly in like 2019. I think I like started listening to him in 2018, around the time that like Die Lit dropped, because I saw some like good buzz around it. I thought it was exciting, but mainly like in 2019, just because it's like really fun to listen to while like skateboarding. I was like getting into that at the time, and it was good vibe. Yeah, that's about like the long and short of it.
Yeah, and just to like emphasize what Matty said, I think it is important to state that I really like Carti's voice and how it's generic to say, but his mouth really is an instrument for him, and his ad libs are joyous and jubilant and like priceless to me, and it meant a lot to me, and that is important to identify because while yes, Carti's voice is very strange and Whole Lotta Red, like I can't emphasize how different this Carti sounds to what came before, which is why this album was such a huge shock to the system. It was almost like a Yeezus moment where like everyone was hyped for the album and it came out and it was just impossible to categorize it. It was just like,
what is this?
What the fuck just happened? Yeah. I think, and one last thing contextually I'll say before we really get into the music is this album was completely shrouded with like controversy right upon release. I remember on Twitter there was a huge thing where Iggy Azalea is the woman that Carti has a child with. And, yeah, and she was incredibly upset with Playboi Carti because he, on their child's birthday, he was celebrating the release of the album with a listening party, so he wasn't there for his kid's birthday. And
I don't want to make light of a serious subject, but I just have to wonder how you could ever listen to like the lyrics to R.I.P. and think, you know what, I could start a family with this man. I want to raise children.
I mean, maybe he played her Control, and maybe that won her over. But anyway, and then she also commented. She just said lots of bad mouthing him, and he sounds like an awful father. Of when the kid was born, apparently Carti was playing PlayStation, Lil Uzi Vert, like somewhere else. And that's actually referenced on this album. About he talks about him getting his dick sucked while playing PlayStation. So PlayStation is a big part of Carti's life, evidently. And but in all seriousness, that it's just so everything about this album was cursed. Like when it came out, like the album cover was genuinely like I still feel uncomfortable looking at the album cover for so long. Like it makes me feel uneasy. It just didn't feel real.
No, that looks fake. Like I think that was the first thing I said to you about this. Like we weren't even talking specifically about the album cover. I just said it doesn't look real. It does. It looks like a joke.
So yeah, I in terms of opinions, I want to hit Matty first because, well, first of all, I feel super sad that this is your first Carti album. While I think there are very interesting things happening here, I don't think it's representative of his entire discography. But yeah, as your first Carti album, The Freshest Eyes, you had no expectations of this. How did this hit you?
Okay, so I've been thinking that this might be like one of the worst albums I've ever heard, like bottom 5. Like I was really struggling to come up with anything positive to say, and that goes down to the level of like moments within songs, and like I would listen to entire songs and I would try and go in with a fine-tooth comb and find something positive. But I just feel like the fundamentals here are so off that like I was looking for something that wasn't there. My biggest problem is the vocals, which I just think are irritating at best. And like at worst, they're like distracting and grating and honestly like weirdly nauseating. Like I really don't like the way songs like Jump Out the House sound. Like they really genuinely, like I showed this to my housemates and we were genuinely like really uncomfortable. Like it is just weird. Like I was really happy you brought that up, Josh, because I really reached a breaking point with that song. Like I was so unhappy. Like I was so unhappy listening to it, and I was like, and it's such a long album. Like it's such a long album. 1 hour 3 minutes with 24 songs feels like forever, and like I think that is another massive part of it. Is it's just you like I just felt so trapped. Like I really did. Like it was so painful. And coming back to listen to it for like repeat listens to like come up with constructive thoughts was like definitely the hardest I've found reviewing an album for this podcast so far. This recontextualizes what the 1975 so much. Like, I didn't know how good I had it.
I remember when this album came out, like, and it was actually Gabriel who suggested that we cover it in the podcast. And I remember thinking that would be a really fun episode, but it also means I have to listen to the album past out of the house. And I remember, like, the way I described that song to Gabriel was it felt like you were at like a family wedding. And there's like an uncle who's like really got a real drug problem, and he's really strung out, and he's just like in your face, like trying to talk to you, but he's like spitting, and he's like repeating himself. Jump in the house. And it's this mixture of like complete. I feel so worried about you, and like it feels like a cry for help.
That's such a perfect metaphor.
And it was the thought of listening to like another hour of something that was genuinely upsetting to me, like something that reminded me of people in my own family who I've seen completely wrecked by drug addiction and PTSD to a point where they are like completely incoherent. And that made this album like deeply upsetting to me on like a really visceral level. But Gabriel, I mean, how do you feel about this album?
I mean, you know, like, as like a music listener and a hip hop fan, I thought it was horrible. But as you know, a learning, trying music maker who doesn't know how to mix at all, I just have to thank Playboi Carti for lowering the bar for all of us. You know, I mean, really, like, I don't know. It's really confused me. Like, it's really, like, there are some songs that I quite like on it. Like, the first track I actually really enjoy. And sometimes, like, throughout the day, I find myself just stuttering it out, like, lines from it, you know? I got me some thoughts. They thought I was gay. You know,
it's just like, you know?
You know, I take my shirt off. You know, it's undeniably like infectious.
No, I'm completely with you. Like, I've hit a point with this album where on my like third or fourth listen, I hit a realm, like a new realm, where like I was able to like differentiate songs on the album and judge them against each other. And I realized, like, in the context of listening to this album, songs I like, such as Stop Breathing, Go to the Moon, I became so enjoyable because they were next to songs like Meh and Control. And like I hit a point of like, am I enjoying this song? Like, do I actually like Go to the Moon? Or is it just in the context of this album, this is like a meta track? And I don't know. And that's why it's so hard. Exactly. It's so hard with this album because it hits a point of being so terrible and strange that it's genuinely almost avant-garde and like experimental. And I can't rationalize like how to grade, how to judge this album, how to merit it.
It's hip hop enhanced interrogation, is what it is. You know, like.
Well, I will try to play the role of rocking your world and giving you some things I do like about this album. Like,
please do.
As an artistic project, I think my favorite thing about this album, and I'll preface this, I think this album is horrifyingly misogynistic.
That was. I want to spend some
awful for a lot of it. That being said, I think thematically the thing that's most interesting on this album is I don't know how intentional it is, but some of the fucked vibes sort of make sense. So there's this metaphor of him being a vampire throughout this album, which I really like, and it's this idea that Carti is completely traumatized. He cannot sleep, and and in the song "No Sleep," he raps, every time I go to sleep, I think about murder. Like I think about killing and dying, and there's this real upsetting narrative about like genuine trauma and like PTSD and like this inability to stop thinking about death and killing, as well as a complete paranoia that borderlines on like schizophrenic bipolar type kind of lyricism. Like you look at a song, weirdly enough, one of the more conventional songs on the album, Sky, where he has this weird manic like tangent about how much he gets along with his B word, how she's his best friend. And then he starts like shouting at her and become like paranoid, like, tell me who you fucked in this room, tell me who you fucked in this room. And then it's horrifying, right? And then he's like, wait, I know she's my B word. I mean, I think she's my B word, but I know she sucks dick. I know she isn't shit. Like this kind of weird paranoid shit happening here. And it is like really sad and worrying, but artistically, thematically, kind of interesting in terms of that vampire duality metaphor and feeling in this constant state of stress. And that is like my favorite thing about this album. It feels like the attempt to make party music when every day you think about dying and you can't really be fun. So it's just like a really scary, stressed out trying to be fun.
Yeah. I've often felt like his music is kind of like pure surface, but not done in like a bad way. Like in the sense that, when you think about like Die Lit and when you think about self-titled, like it's purely hedonistic. Like what he's talking about is like, is like violence and drugs and, sort of like vibes, and like the lyrics are almost just like stream of consciousness. So that's always been a thing that I enjoyed, because it lets you kind of go to a place which is very carefree, because it has generally been carefree, even if it is kind of like, like ecstasy carefree instead of, just sort of like Zen carefree. But yeah, no, this album does somehow feel like kind of like, the Hangover somehow. Like, I don't know, like when I first listened to it, I thought like, there's no way that he didn't just like smoke a bunch of like meth and like finish this album in a week. With some bangers though. There are some bangers here.
I am more charitable to this album than Matty is. Like,
I wanna hear what the bangers are. Because I can't see enjoying this, and I want to hear about it.
I'd say Rockstar Made. I enjoy that. Stop Breathing. That's pretty good. Beano's alright. Slayer. New Tank, if only for the I got me some thoughts line. I thought that was pretty iconic.
One thing I want to say about Slayer is that it's one of the only beats on the album that starts off like actually kind of okay and interesting, but then isn't completely mixed down whenever Carti's vocals come in, because it's like I feel like there is actually kind of a run on this album where the beats start off genuinely like they're improving, but then whenever his vocals come in, it really feels like his ego has come along and he's told the producer, no, mix that right down. This is all about my stupid fucking ad-libs in the background, which are incredibly grating and really and off rhythm, and so same with my main vocal melody anyway. Mix that beat right down. Whereas Slayer is the first time on the album where that kind of just very like plucky, really quite charming synth notes stick around. It sounds like excerpt of a synth score from an indie movie. I find it really weirdly charming for a song called Slayer.
Yeah, speaking of the production of this album, again, like Matty, I agree. I think in my opinion, the well-produced songs come in couplets on this album. So like, Go to the Moon, Stop Breathing, and Beano is a great streak for me personally. Slayer and No Sleep sounds really good to me. Vamp Anthem and New Neon sound good together. On That Time in King Vamp sound really nice together, as the Sky and Over. And I think while a lot of this production sounds unfinished, rough, and lo-fi, but maybe not like intentionally lo-fi, just like generally unfinished and
Yeah.
unmixed. My favorite beats from this remind me of like a Castlevania boss fight. They sound like almost like synthy in a way that reminds of like the kind of bit tune music Anamaguchi would make. And I really love, I genuinely really adore those moments. Like on Vamp Anthem, genuinely sounds like a boss fight. Like it's really fun and playful and cute. And those are like the most confident, impressive moments in the album for me, production wise.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad thing because I feel like when, you know, there are moments in the album where this sort of like potential alternate universe version of it peeks through. You know, like there are genuinely moments that seem like, oh, okay, this is like you're onto something. You know, but it's just like
Yeah.
the execution of it in the end is just so like muddled and haphazard that you know, by the end there's not really much of a product to appreciate and all of it.
Like this whole experience of this album's rollout and release felt like very like Mark Fisher to me. Like it felt like a lost future. Like he gave me Whole Lotta Red, but like it's so separated from what we all thought Whole Lotta Red was going to be, what we dreamed of. That album now feels like a lost future, especially when you think about like those leaks that happened.
Yeah,
Wonderful songs,
amazing
like
ones, yeah.
Pissy Pamper and Molly.
Molly, yeah.
But yeah, favorite and least favorite track. So I think I'll start if you don't mind. That, you know, my three favorite tracks. So I'll just go in order. Beano, exclamation point. I love this song. It sounds like classic Carti. I think his voice isn't too crazy, and here it actually feels like it's mixed properly and like accordingly with the beat. And the beat I think is bouncy and playful. And yeah, that sounds like a retro nostalgic video game soundtrack. Yeah, I just think this is lovely and bubbly. And then after this, I really like the song Vamp Anthem. I fucking love this song, real vampire shit. But yeah, I think Carti's voice sounds really like smooth and nice on this beat. And I just wish there were more songs like Vamp Anthem, which were as confident with the kind of Castlevania type beat and the vampire lyrical themes, you know. And like I said, like it really fits with the metaphor thematically of what Carti is going for on this album, of like feeling like a monster, feeling like he's turning the people around him into like little clones of him in the same way a vampire would turn people into vampires, not being able to sleep at night due to like trauma and just going on rages. Thinking of Carti as a vampire in this current period really works for me. It's really satisfying. And finally, On That Time, I think On That Time, Gabriel earlier on said there are some bangers in this album, and I think On That Time is a fucking banger. Like, in all fairness, it was the you know the guy on YouTube makes his videos where it's like rap song, but it's just my voice doing the entire song, and he like reconstructs the beat with his voice. He did On That Time, and it hit me how hard like the push up. That we're gonna push up like that. I love how he says that. It is almost like a Death Grips type performance in how he just spits those words out, and the genuine kind of consideration he put into the plosive sounds of stringing those words together. Really satisfying for me. And if other songs in this album sound like retro video game music, this sounds like final boss music. This really was a climactic moment on the album for me, and I really dug it. And then my least favorite track is Control. I fucking hate this song. The spoken word intro of this track about the album rollout could be interesting, and it kind of suggests this album's attempt to like subvert the hype that was built up. But the song that follows is just so obnoxious. Like it sounds like a teen pop beat from the 2000s, like something 303 would have made of Katy Perry, or even that song. You know the song "Shake, Shake, 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 Shake It." Like it sounds like that kind of song, and it's so jarring and weird on this album. And Carti doing an attempt of a love ballad is just like super fucking gross to me. Especially given the Iggy Azalea situation of knowing how shitty he is to the actual women in his life who
Yeah.
care about him and are trying to help him. And it's this line, B-word, I'm not a stalker, but baby, I always watch you. I only want the best for you. I cure your love like a doctor. Like, in what world is this romantic? This is just so. It makes me feel like physically uncomfortable. And the only nice thing I can say about this song is the hook, if it was performed differently by maybe a different person, the Ever Since I Met You, Girl I've Been Losing Control, Girl I've Been Losing Control could be nice. Like, I tried to imagine like Bareface and Brockhampton singing that line, and like I think it could be sweet, but yeah, this is just such a failure of a track. And overall, with my recommend or not recommend, this album completely confounded me, and I'm going to introduce a new type of recommend for this album. I'm giving this a dark recommend. I think this is a bad album, but I
Shadow
you have
recommend.
to listen to it. Yeah, you have to listen to this album. It's so fucking insane that like I think
it is fucking
genuinely
crazy.
important. In
A
some
Sigma
way.
recommend.
See, I'm gonna give this a dark recommend. Like, listen to this if you want to like open the horizon of what music can be or how bad it can get.
Yeah,
I think that's important to do. But yeah, this is.
But remember, when you stare into the void, it also stares back at you.
It's true. Have you ever like stood in the bathroom in the dark, just repeating, "Jump out the house, jump out the house, jump out the house"?
Like, Gabriel, it actually scared me when you were talking about going around like finding yourself like mouthing and spitting lyrics, because I was like, oh, I've been doing that. It really is some fucking Cthulhu shit. Like it's got inside me. I things I hate, like moments I like really don't like. But here I am going, jump out the house.
Before I leave this album for like on the podcast and let you two speak, I gotta say one of my favorite lines is from Meh, in which he says, "I can't tell if I love her, Johnny Cage, beat her up under covers, gotta have a rubber, or I'm in trouble." It's incredible. Dark recommend.
MF Doom level rhyme scheme.
Gabriel, how about you?
Yeah, right. I would say 3 tracks that I like the most. I would tend towards the ones that are more like on the sort of like, I guess, sort of like pseudo punk aesthetic he has going on. So probably Rockstar Made, Stop Breathing, and On That Time. Just because, like, you know, there are other tracks that I do like on the album, but they kind of feel like they would be better in their own. They distract from what's actually interesting about the album, if that makes sense. You know, because they're just sort of like slightly lesser versions of his previous styles. So yeah, I'd go with those 3 just because they're like, you know, they're genuinely kind of interesting, like sort of like soft, harsh hip hop. You know, like sort of like, I don't know, Baby's first like punk rap album or whatever. Like, I genuinely think that if you like, you know, if you listen to those 3 tracks, like Rockstar Made, Stop Breathing, and On That Time, like just by themselves, like it again, you know, it gives you like a little peek into like a lost future, a lost version of this album that like could have been. I'd say my least favorite track is Metamorphosis, just because that shit is so long and just like not good. Like, and it's bad from the outset. Like, there's just no part of it. It just makes you incredibly sad. You know, the feature is just horrible. Like, why is it 5 minutes? Like, why is that song? Like, the music video as well. Like, you know, extra dumpster points for that, because that music video is like, it's horrible. It's really not good. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say about Stop Breathing, which I really like, is how much it merges like the fucked vibes with party vibes. Because it has like the, you know, I take my shirt off and then the hose breathing, which is like a normal braggadocious line. And then it descends into like breathing. I think that girl's not breathing. Like this horrifying like description of like an overdose or something. It's like such a weird, horrifying song. I really dig it.
What is he hiding from us? What happened to him? What is he not telling us? Yeah, to give it a dark, like a Sigma.
Sigma Prime.
Sigma recommend.
Recommend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, this is Josh speaking from the future. So this is editing Josh. Just to say that the part of this recording got cut off, and so Matthew's first favorite track got cut off. I believe it was Slayer. But if I'm wrong, you just have to live in the mystery of never knowing. Enjoy.
Okay.
I'm sure you can just start from the new neon description.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I forgot that was like on my second. Yeah, so the beat actually is sustained, the melody of it throughout, and that's really nice. But God, I'm not gonna lie, this is one of the most unhinged performances I think from him, especially with how like it feels like a middle ground between the vocal production of old and like the kind of stuff that he was doing on Earthquake, where it is extremely high pitched, and this new very like gruff, grounded kind of character that he's got, and it is really strange, and it sounds exactly like these like meme songs that a guy in a Discord server we're in used to send like a year or two ago, and like that was really weird for me to hear because it genuinely sounds uncannily like them. Like it's really strange, and I know I said this is one of my favorite tracks, but this is where I realized the level of trash that this truly was. Like this is truly unsalvageable. Finally, Place has like quite a nice kind of like warm synth beat. Dude, I'm really trying. I'm really trying, but like I said, I'm stretched thin, and the vocals are they're much more stripped back. There's a lot less like aggressive pushing on you in this. He's definitely ad-libbing quite a bit, and you know what? I'm fine with that because it's just laid back. And he's not forcing too much on you in this one, and I'm really thankful for it. And it genuinely actually fits. It's one of the first times on this album that I songs like "Stop Breathing," like that vocal rhythm is really appropriate for that beat. But a lot of these songs, I really feel like he's just off tempo and like a genuinely like terrible rapper, like genuinely just actually abysmal. But it feels appropriate here.
I agree. I think Place is pretty inoffensive. My favorite thing about Place is that the beat starts and then 2 seconds in, it literally drops out of existence. Like everything stops as if your headphones were pulled out. And then it comes back in unceremoniously. And I really love this. It's quite like nice. The drugged out, unruly, almost broken energy the album has. And it feels unfinished. Like it feels like an accidental glitched upload. It's so weird.
Yeah, it is super weird. That there's a lot of moments like that on this album. And finally, Jump Out the House for being this is my least favorite track, for being my by far least favorite vocal performance.
Jump out the house.
Dude, I actually can't stand it. Like I like, not to be just purely hyperbolic in lieu of like actual good criticism, but like I really. This album needs me to go there to get to my point. I really feel uncomfortable in it. Like there's so many, like on the fucking mix of this, I can picture so many different tracks for the vocal melody, just for every single different vocal element he's doing, and it's all Carti, and it's all the same like level of they all sound the same, and they're all the same volume. And they're just thrown at you like shit on a wall, and it's just overwhelming, and it makes me anxious and uncomfortable, and I really don't like it. And the beat just doesn't stop. Like it's this like single note going up and down over and over again, and I really despise it. It's a lot of elements coming together to make something horrible. Like it is horrible. And I don't know, like it definitely gets to like the heart of this album. I think there is just so much confusion here, about what he's going for. Like, to me, when I think of this album, I think of like an evil version of like that scene in Iron Man 2 where where he has to fight Brody. And it's like, but like where he's like, he just needs to be stopped. He just needs to be stopped. And like, he has this vision of himself, but really he's just this mess. And like, yeah, it's just so sad. It's just so sad. But at the same time, fuck you for making a song. Like, honestly, like, what were you doing?
I don't know.
So
I
yeah,
just think he needs rehab. Like, I do think he needs real.
yeah.
Help.
You know, I'll get onto this in a second. I don't think he's a very like. I hope he's. You know, I don't want him to be completely fucked up. Like this, it sounds like he's genuinely going through some really serious shit, and yeah, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't really wish that on anyone. But yeah, to recommend and to give like my final thoughts, I'd give this an Optimus Prime recommend for this album. No, really, really, I'd give it like the lowest of recommends. There is never any context. There is never any context where, like, unless I know someone.
That's a not recommend.
That's a not recommend. That's the lowest of not recommends. Because I know very few people with a sense of humor sick enough to genuinely get something out of listening to this whole album, and I think both of them are here today. So after that, there's no one. This is for no one. Genuinely, Pitchfork
guards
guy.
at Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah. Genuinely, Pitchfork guy, quit your fucking job. You are lying. You are lying. I think music is entirely subjective, entirely, no doubt about it. But I think subjectively there is no way you can listen to this and give this an 8.3. There is no way. Also, fucking decimal scores are bullshit. Fuck you. What makes Whole Lotta Red 0.3 higher than 8. Fuck you.
No, 0.3 higher than Armand Hammer's try.
Yeah, there was the bass loop on track 7 was marginally. Fuck you. Like, I just don't think this is for anyone. It is a catastrophic failure. There is nothing here. This is really briefly. Like, yeah, I haven't heard an album that genuinely hates women this much in a long time, and to the point where I don't know, it is incredibly hard to extract any enjoyment from it. It is just hateful, and it is quite shocking.
It feels like someone hurt Carti, and he just has really weird. You know, like the type of misogyny that's born out of like deep trust issues, kind of like incel shit. Like, on the track Teen X, it opens with him like describing like, I broke up with my girl and I've replaced her with drugs, and he just lists all the drugs that he's doing for the whole song. Like that really captures the type of misogyny this is.
Yeah, that's honestly so like bold. That's so like to just be like, here are the drugs I replaced my woman. That's kind of amazing, and I'm gonna have to give this a Bumblebee recommend. Okay. Let's wrap this up.
So yeah, that's Whole Lotta Red. So I mean, if you made it through this entire podcast, I don't know how you could hear this and not want to hear what the album's like, because I don't think words can capture what it's like to listen to this album.
Yeah, it really does go to a place that the intellect can't follow. You know?
Academics hate this album.
It really is like pure id. Like, there's no way to really articulate what's happening.
He's just.
I think one of the best comments I saw, like on the drop thread, was like, I don't know, something along the lines of like, maybe my parents were right about hip hop, and I feel like that kind of sums it up. You know,
But yeah, well, thank you a ton, Gabriel, for joining us for this discussion.
Thanks for being here.
And yeah, before we head out, Matty, what film are we covering next week?
So the next film we're going to be talking in our film episodes is it's I Walk on Water, which is it's hard to describe, a poetic autobiographical look at the life of the filmmaker, and at the streets of Harlem, and it's also an examination, social realism itself, especially in photography, because the director Kalakala was a photographer turned filmmaker. It's very much a reflection on the differences between those two mediums, and how they different capture things, especially within similarities of image. So that image being Harlem and that being the home of this artist, and how he captures his home differently in motion picture and versus stills. So I'm really excited to watch this and sink our teeth into it. It should provide a lot of discussion, and it just looks beautiful as well. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, that's it. We can finally leave this arcane thing behind us, and move on. So thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, be sure to follow us on our social media on Instagram, Twitter, at Minority Us Podcast. All links in the bio. And subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast application is, so you can get updated on new episodes. Yeah, we'll catch you next week with I Walk on Water.
Shout out my Sigma Prime males.